Good afternoon, children and families of Emmanuel. I'm so happy to be here with you. I'm Pastor Sarah, if we haven't met yet, and I love to tell stories. So I thought for the season of Advent, I would do something special and share a story with you each week. Something that helps us look forward to Christmas. And I thought, what better place to tell these stories than from my daughter Madeline's room in her big comfy chair, the place where story time happens most often in our house. So the story that I want to tell first is the story of the 3 trees. Now this is a story that's been told and retold many times, so you might be familiar with it. And I hope if you are familiar with it, that you're excited to hear it again. I know that it's one of my favorites and I love to rehear it. And if you're not familiar with it, then I think you're in for a real treat. Once upon a mountainside, there were 3 little trees, and they had great big dreams for what they wanted to be when they grew up. The first little tree looked up at the stars, saw their beauty, and thought, I want to be a treasure chest, covered in gold and jewels and holding riches of the world. I will be the most beautiful treasure chest. The second tree looked down at the creek below that flowed into the ocean and thought, I want to be a mighty ship. I want to travel the world on the ocean and carry mighty kings. I will be the strongest ship in the world. The third tree didn't want to leave the mountainside at all. She looked down at the town below with the busy men and women going about their busy lives and thought, I want to grow so big and so tall that when people look at me, they'll look heavenwards. When people look at me, I'll point them to God. I will be the tallest tree in the whole world. Well, some time passed, and the sun shone and the rain came, and those trees grew big and tall. And one day, 3 woodcutters came. The first woodcutter looked at the first tree and said, this tree is beautiful. It is perfect for what I need. And with a swoop of his shining axe, the first tree fell down. The first tree thought, yes, I'm going to get my dream. I'm going to become a treasure chest. Now the second woodcutter looked around and saw the second tree and said, this tree is so big and strong. It is perfect for what I need. And with a swoop of his shining axe, the second tree came down. And the second tree thought, yes, I'm going to get to be a big ship. Now the third tree, her heart sunk as that third woodcutter glanced her way. She stood brave and tall and tried her best to point to heaven. But that woodcutter never even looked up. Any tree will do for what I need. And with a swoop of his shining axe, the third tree fell. The first tree was delighted when she ended up at a carpenter, and she was fashioned into, not a treasure chest, but a feed box for animals. She wasn't covered with gold, she was covered in sawdust. And she wasn't filled with treasure. She was filled with hay for animals. The second tree was pretty happy when he ended up at a shipyard, but he wasn't fashioned into a big and mighty ship. He was made into a simple fishing boat, not strong enough to sail rivers and oceans, just strong enough for a little lake. So that's where he ended up. The third tree was confused when she was cut into strong beams, but then just left in a woodpile, forgotten about. She wondered, how did this happen? All I ever wanted to do was grow big and tall and point people to God. Now, many years passed, and these trees had nearly forgotten about their dreams. But then one starlit night, the moon shone on that feed box, and a woman placed her newborn child into the hay. Her husband looked sad and said, "Oh, I wish that I could build him a cradle." But the woman looked at the feed box and said, "Oh, the wood is beautiful. This will do." And suddenly that first tree knew that she was carrying the most precious treasure in all the earth. Then one stormy day, a tired traveler and his friends got into the little fishing boat. The tired traveler fell asleep, but a storm raged on, and the little boat thought to himself, "I'm not strong enough to carry all these people to safety." But the traveler woke up and said, "Peace," and the storm was calm. And suddenly the second tree knew that he was carrying the King of Kings. Then one Friday, the third tree, her beams were pulled from the woodpile, and she was sad as she was carried through an angry, jeering crowd. Then a man's hands were nailed to her, and she felt ugly and cruel. But then on Sunday morning, God's love changed everything, and the earth trembled with joy. And she was strong and beautiful again. And she knew that every time people thought of her, she would point to God. And that was even better than being the tallest tree in the world. The end. We all have dreams of what we want to be when we grow up. And sometimes those dreams come true. But sometimes God has something even better in mind for us. That tree that wanted to be a treasure chest became the manger that held baby Jesus. And that tree that wanted to be a mighty ship became the fishing boat that carried the disciples. And the tree that wanted to be the tallest tree and point people to God became the cross, where God's love was revealed to all the world. Well, I hope you enjoyed that story as much as I did. And I look forward to telling you a story next week, the same time. So until then, be blessed. And I hope you just get more and more excited because Christmas is coming and we are blessed.